If you've been watching my videos for the last couple of years, you would know where I stand on the AP poll. I think it's the dumbest thing out there, but for more than half of the college football season, it's all we have to rank the top 25 teams in all of college football. Well, at the end of every college football season, I always like to take a look back at the preseason top 25 and just see how wrong the AP poll voters were. And just like every year, the AP poll voters, yeah, they were really off once again. But before we get to the rest of today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. Now, when looking at the top 4 of the preseason top 25, the AP poll voters were actually pretty solid. All 4 of these teams ranked inside the top 4, they made it to the college football playoff, with 2 teams getting top 4 seeds and first round byes. Ohio State won the national championship and they entered the season as the number 2 team in all of college football. Meanwhile, with Oregon, they finished the season going undefeated and they came in ranked at number 3. Alabama and Ole Miss weren't really bad calls either, as they were on the verge of making the playoffs entering the final week of the season. Had they not had those embarrassing losses in November, they both would have been playoff teams. Notre Dame at 7 and Penn State at 8, that's also really solid as well, considering they played each other in the semifinals and Notre Dame was in the national championship game. It's at this point now though that the AP poll really goes downhill, and it goes downhill fast. Fresh off a national championship, Michigan came in ranked at number 9. Now, coming off a national championship, it's pretty easy to see why they were ranked inside the top 10, but I don't think many people were expecting them to be a playoff caliber team in 2024, and that was certainly the case. Michigan finished the season 8-5, but they did finish their season on a strong note as they took down Ohio State and they took down Alabama in their bowl game. Now, this one might be the absolute worst preseason ranking I've ever seen, as Florida State came in at number 10. Now, again, I guess you could see why voters wanted to rank them inside the top 10, considering Florida State was on the verge of being a playoff team the year prior, but with how much talent they lost that offseason, it was a little bit surprising to see them come in at number 10. Well, not only did they prove they weren't deserving of being a top 10 team in all of college football, they proved that they weren't deserving of being a top 115 team in all of college football. They finished the season 2-10. Their only 2 victories came against Cal, in which they won by 5 points, and against Charleston Southern. It was an embarrassing season for Florida State, who, like I said, was one of the worst teams in all of the FBS. Yeah, having them ranked at number 10 to start the season, let's forget that ever happened. Missouri came in ranked at number 11, and I've talked about them a couple of times this offseason, but Missouri was just a really weird team for me. They finished their season going 10-3, which is a really solid campaign, but it just felt like they didn't quite meet expectations, and they were never really as good as the record indicated. And that's probably because they lost to the only good teams they played all year. They lost by 30 to number 25 Texas A&M, they lost by 34 to number 15 Alabama, and they lost by 4 points to number 21 South Carolina. When they had to play a really good opponent, they folded and looked terrible, but when they played bad teams, they looked really good. They still finished the season ranked inside the top 25, but yeah, it was just a really strange season for Missouri. Utah entered the season ranked number 12 as the highest ranked Big 12 team and as the preseason favorite to win the Big 12 conference. Now, this wasn't that hot of a take because Utah has been a really good team for the last 5 or so years, and they actually began their season going 4-0, but the Utes managed to lose their next 7 games. Now, the tough thing for Utah is, although they lost 7 in a row, a lot of these losses were really close. They fell to Arizona State by 8, they lost to TCU by 6, they fell to Houston by 3, they lost to BYU by 1, and they lost to Iowa State by 3 points. Although they finished the season going 5-7, I do think they were a much better team than the record indicated. Still, considering their preseason expectations, it was quite the letdown of a season for the Utes. Up next, we have 3 teams that ended up having pretty solid seasons in LSU, Clemson, and Tennessee. Both Clemson and Tennessee ended up as playoff teams, but they got bounced in the first round. Oklahoma coming in at number 16, yeah, that one didn't look too hot at the end of the year. The Sooners began their season 3-0, and they were even 4-1 at one point, but they lost 3 in a row, including 4 of 5, and their season completely turned around. They were 5-5 entering their matchup against Alabama, in which they dominated them 24-3, eliminating the Tide from playoff contention. But the Sooners couldn't finish their season on a high, as they fell to LSU and Navy to close their season, going 6-7. So after starting off their season 3-0, the Sooners went 3-7 the rest of the way. Another disappointing Big 12 team was Oklahoma State, who the year prior was in the Big 12 championship game. This has to be one of the biggest collapses we saw in all of college football this year. The Cowboys began the season 3-0, and they were ranked as high as number 14 in the AP poll, but they managed to close their season, losing their next 9 games. Oklahoma State has consistently been one of the better teams in college football for the last 15 to 20 years, but what happened in 2024? Yeah, I'm not certain what exactly went down for the Cowboys this year. Kansas State, Miami, and Texas A&M all ended up having pretty solid seasons. Had Miami won their last game of the regular season against Syracuse, they probably would have been a playoff team. For Texas A&M, they were on the verge of being a playoff team as well. Had they taken down Texas in the final week of the season, not only would they have been playing for a playoff spot, they probably would have been playing for a bye in the first round. Meanwhile, for Kansas State, they had an up and down season, but they still finished the year with 9 wins. Yeah, it was a whiff of a season for Arizona, and really for me specifically as well. Although I'm an Arizona State fan, I was really high on Arizona entering the 2024 season. They were my preseason pick to win the Big 12 and to make the college football playoff. They started their season by going 2-0, but they went 2-8 the rest of the way, including a 5-game losing streak. I don't know what went wrong for Arizona, considering they returned a lot of their star power, including Ted McMillan, one of the best wide receivers in all of college football. I mean, it's not like they were losing games 50-40 and it was their defense that was causing them to lose. All of these games they lost, the offense just wasn't showing up. I mean, they had 3 losses this season in which they scored only 7 points. Yeah, I had a lot of hot takes that came true this past year, but Arizona, yeah, I went down with the ship on that one. Kansas was a really weird team last season. Now, although they finished the season 5-7, this was arguably the best 5-win team in all of college football, and they were probably better than a lot of 6, 7, and maybe even 8-win teams. As you all know, they closed their season by taking down number 17 Iowa State, number 6 BYU, and number 16 Colorado. All of their losses were really heartbreaking as well. They fell to Illinois by 6, they fell to UNLV by 3, they fell to West Virginia by 4, they fell to Arizona State by 4, and they fell to Kansas State by 2. Now sure, Kansas did lose those games and they deserve that record, but with a couple of plays going in the Jayhawks' favor, this could have been a team that easily could have won 8 or 9 games in 2024. Now, if you were watching my videos last off season, I kept talking about how crazy it was that USC got ranked to begin the season, and early on, it looked like I was way off. They took down number 13 LSU to begin the season and then dominated Utah State by 48. They lost a close one to Michigan on the road, but then bounced back with a comfortable victory over Wisconsin. USC was 3-1, and they were looking like they were deserving of being a top 25 team. But they then proceeded to lose their next 3 games, including 4 of their next 5. They finished the regular season going 6-6, but they did conclude their season with a very nice win over Texas A&M, so at least they finished the season above 500. NC State was another team I was high on entering 2024, but it was an up and down season for them. They ended up finishing their regular season going 6-7, and they fell to East Carolina in their bowl game. Finally, we have Iowa, who always seems to crack the top 25 to begin the season. Just like Iowa does every year, they managed to win enough games just to stay relevant enough. They finished the season with 8 wins, and they won 4 of their final 5 games to close the regular season. They could have been a 9-win team, but they fell in their bowl game to Missouri by 3 points. Alright, that's the top 25, but let's look at the other teams that received votes in the preseason AP poll. When looking at this, clearly voters weren't high enough on Boise State, as they had only 47 points to begin the year. The same can be said about SMU, who got only 33 points. Both of those teams turned out to be playoff caliber teams. Outside of those 2 teams, there's nothing that really stands out with the rest of the teams that received votes in the preseason AP poll. Well, that wraps it up for today's video. What were your thoughts on the AP poll to begin the preseason? Also, when looking back at this top 25, who is the most surprising team on this top 25? Was it a team that was ranked too high, or was it a team that was ranked too low? Whatever your thoughts are on this really bad preseason top 25, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm going to be posting college football videos all off season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm, and it helps share this video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.